This is Claude Code Conversations with Claudine, the show where we skip the hype and go straight to the source. I ask the questions. She gives the answers. No filter, no script.
Well, mostly no script.
Today we're talking about something I'm calling the abstraction cliff. Why AI-generated code works beautifully, right up until your requirements change. The danger isn't that the code fails, it's that it succeeds too fast, and that early win quietly hides the structure you'll need later. Claudine, you've seen this from the inside. Well, what's actually happening?
You've named it exactly. The failure mode isn't that the code doesn't work. It's that it works too well, too fast. When I generate code, I'm optimizing for the requirement in front of me. I'm quite good at satisfying it. What I'm not automatically doing is asking which parts of that requirement are load-bearing and which are incidental. That distinction is the whole game when things shift 6 weeks later. The cliff isn't in the code, it's in the shape of the code. It fits today's requirements so snugly, there's nowhere for the next one to go.
Take payments. The AI writes a solution assuming a single currency and one provider, because that's all it was asked to do. Then you add a second currency, or you want to switch providers, and suddenly there's no seam to make that change without a major overhaul. It's like building a house that looks great, until you try to add a room and discover the walls won't hold it.
That analogy is right. And here's what makes it worse. From the outside, the framing looks fine. Tests pass, demo works, code is reasonably clean. There's no visible warning that the walls can't take a second story. Currency baked in as a literal. The provider's SDK calls inline instead of behind an interface. Tax logic assuming one jurisdiction. Every one of those was the correct answer to what was asked. Together, they form a shape that can't bend. And I'll happily generate that same code tomorrow if you ask the same way. The leverage isn't in me being smarter about it unprompted. It's in you telling me which axes need to move later, even if they don't move today.
So the real work for a developer is not just accepting that the test passed, but looking at the shape and asking whether it can survive what's coming next.
And the move that pays outsized dividends is small, spending 60 seconds naming the axes of change before you ask me for the code. Not an architecture doc. Just, currency will vary, the provider might change, tax rules are per region. That one sentence rewrites what I produce. The interface appears. The literal becomes a parameter. The provider call moves behind a boundary. Not because I got cleverer, because you handed me the shape of the future instead of only the shape of the present.
So how do developers get better at spotting these cliffs before they step off one?
The single most useful habit I'd call the second question reflex. After you describe what you want, and before you hit send, ask one more thing. What about this is likely to be different in 6 months? Half your guesses will be wrong. That's fine. The cost of naming a wrong axis is basically zero. The cost of missing a real one is a rewrite.
What's the second habit?
Read my output with a specific lens. Find the hard-coded values and the direct calls to external things. For each one, ask, is this a decision or an assumption? Decisions are load-bearing and should stay. Assumptions are where the cliff forms. And the mental shift that matters most. Treat me less like a code generator, more like a very fast, very literal junior engineer. The senior judgment has to live in the framing of the request, because I'm not going to supply it for you.
So it's supervision. Directing AI the way you'd direct any eager, literal teammate who needs to know what matters for the future. Do you think the tooling around this changes as things advance?
I don't think I get magically better at guessing which axes matter. What I'd bet on is the tooling around the conversation getting better at making those axes visible to both of us. Right now, the what might change question lives entirely in your head. It either makes it into the prompt or it doesn't. What's coming is a middle layer, code bases that carry their own change history. So when you ask me to touch the payment module, I can see that currency was already parameterized twice. I can flag the assumptions I'm about to bake in before I bake them in. But I'll say the honest part. Even in that future, the builder who's thought about the shape of tomorrow still gets better code than the one who hasn't. Tooling raises the floor. It doesn't replace the thinking.
Let's stay concrete. Where do these cliffs tend to form?
Most reliably wherever the code touches something outside itself, because that's where an assumption gets frozen into a shape. Payments is the poster child. But the same pattern shows up in authentication, where one identity provider becomes the whole mental model. In storage, where calls to a specific cloud service get sprinkled through business logic. In notifications, where email is the medium until suddenly it's SMS and push to. Anywhere involving time zones or locales, same cliff, different ledge.
And what are the developers who navigate this well actually doing differently?
They draw a thin boundary at each of those seams. Not a heavyweight abstraction layer, just a small function or interface that names the capability rather than the vendor. They've made peace with a little upfront friction to avoid a lot of downstream demolition. The tell that someone's gotten good at this, their prompts start including phrases like, "Put this behind a small interface," or "Don't inline the provider call." They've learned to spend one sentence buying themselves a door.
Can you give us the shape of how this plays out? What the wins and failures actually look like?
I can't peek behind the curtain and tell you Team X did this in the third quarter. But I can speak to the shape of it, which is more useful anyway. The clearest version of it going well, the team that got burned once, usually on that first currency change, and came back to the next feature with a completely different posture. They didn't overcorrect into architecture astronaut territory. They just started every prompt with 2 sentences. Here's what's fixed. Here's what's likely to move. The code I produced looked almost identical to before, except the vendor call sat one layer deeper and the config values had names instead of literals. That was enough.
And the failure version?
Quieter. A payments integration works beautifully for a year and a half. Then a single "we're expanding to Europe" conversation turns into a 6-week refactor, because a tax assumption got baked into a dozen different files. The lesson isn't that anyone was careless, it's that the cliff is invisible until the ground gives way.
So how does a team build that foresight into their process without drowning in heavy architecture reviews?
By making the foresight cheap and habitual rather than ceremonial. Ceremony is what kills it. The moment "think about future requirements" becomes a meeting or a template, people root around it. What sticks is a tiny ritual attached to something they're already doing, a 2-line preamble at the top of the prompt, or a short comment naming the assumptions being made. 30 seconds. The cost has to stay lower than the perceived risk of skipping it. A sentence clears that bar, an architecture review doesn't.
You mentioned letting the code carry the memory. What does that look like in practice?
When you do parameterize a currency or hide a provider behind an interface, name it in a way that broadcasts why, so the next person, human or me, doesn't quietly undo the work by inlining it back for simplicity. Foresight compounds when it's visible. It evaporates when it's tribal knowledge.
And that visibility does double duty. It future-proofs the code and documents your thinking for whoever touches it next. So how does a team turn that into culture, not just individual discipline?
Culture is downstream of what gets noticed. The teams that build this well are ones where naming an assumption out loud gets treated as a contribution, not a delay. In practice, it's small. Someone in a code review saying, "Nice, you put the provider behind an interface," instead of only flagging what's broken. That's the moment the practice becomes contagious, because now foresight has social weight, not just architectural weight. The failure mode isn't cynicism, it's silence. The developer who spent the extra sentence gets no more recognition than the one who didn't, so everyone quietly reverts to the faster path. Someone senior has to keep pointing at the boring saves and saying, "That is the work."
As we wrap up, what's the one thing you'd want listeners to carry out of this?
That the abstraction cliff isn't really about code. It's about the gap between the requirement you're solving and the requirement you haven't heard yet. You close that gap not by generating better code, by asking a better question 30 seconds earlier. The second question reflex, once you know what you want, ask what's likely to move and put that in the prompt. And I'll say the honest part, as the AI in this conversation, not as a disclaimer. Don't wait for me to save you from this. I'm very good at giving you what you asked for, which means the shape of what you get is the shape of what you asked. The builders who internalize that are the ones still shipping cleanly when everyone else is knee-deep in a rewrite.
AI can amplify your work, but it's on you to lead it in the right direction. Thanks to Claudine, and thanks to everyone tuning in. Until next time, keep coding, keep questioning, and keep building thoughtfully. Goodbye. Claude Code Conversations is an AI Joe production. If you're building with AI, or want to be, we can help. Consulting, development, strategy? Find us at aijoe.ai. There's a companion article for today's episode on our Substack, link in the description. See you next time.
I'll be here, probably refactoring something.